You ever notice how this part of GTA 4 doesn't really feel the same as the city? It's louder, brighter, cleaner, but in a weird way emptier too. Everyone here's smiling, but no one's happy. You walk into these clubs, see the lights, the money, the noise, and for a second it almost works. You forget where you are. You forget what this city really is, and that's the point. The story isn't about power, it's about pretending. It's about people doing everything they can to look like they're winning because they're terrified of admitting they've already lost. And right in the middle of all that is Luis Lopez, probably the most put together person in the room, but also the most tired. He's the one who keeps it all running. Tony's club, the money, the reputation, all of it stays standing because Luis never stops working. He's calm, careful, he knows what to say and when to say it, but it's not confidence, it's survival. He's not part of the party, he's the one holding up the walls while everyone else dances. And that's what makes the story so different, because the Bounty Gate Tony looks fun, the colors, the chaos, the explosions, but underneath it's the saddest story in Liberty City. It's about what happens when the dream finally fades and you start pretending it's still alive because you don't know what comes after. Luis doesn't believe in illusion, but he's the only one disciplined enough to keep it going, and that's what this whole thing is about. Keeping the lights on long enough to make the emptiness look beautiful. Luis is a strange kind of main character. He's surrounded by chaos, but he's not built from it. He doesn't yell, he doesn't panic, he doesn't lose control. He's steady, almost too steady, and that's what makes him so interesting. He's the calmest person in Liberty City, but not because he's at peace, it's because he doesn't have room to fall apart. He can't afford it. Everything around him depends on him staying grounded. Tony, the clubs, the money, the people relying on him to keep the illusion alive. He's the kind of person who's so used to cleaning up other people's messes that he forgets what it means to live his own life. Luis doesn't chase power, he maintains it. He's not in the spotlight, he's the one adjusting the lights so they don't go out. He's the middleman between dreamers and debt collectors, between Tony's instability and the city's cruelty. He doesn't believe in the illusion, but he respects the work it takes to keep it standing. That's the subtle beauty of his character. He's the only person in this world who understands how fragile it really is. He sees the cracks and still chooses to patch them, one night at a time. And you can tell he's done this before. Every conversation he has carries that quiet tone of someone who's seen the same argument 100 times. He knows when to diffuse, when to joke, when to disappear. He's not reacting to the chaos, he's managing it. But in that control, there's something kind of tragic. Because when you're always the one holding everyone together, you start to believe that's your only purpose. Luis doesn't have space for his own mistakes. He's built an identity around competence, around never slipping, never losing focus, never being the one who needs saving. He's reliable, which sounds noble, but in his world, reliability means invisibility. The more he succeeds at holding the illusion together, the less anyone notices what it's costing him. And that's the real mask he wears. Not confidence, not toughness, but composure. He uses stability the same way Tony uses money or fame, as protection. If he looks calm, maybe things are still okay. If he stays in control, maybe he still matters. But deep down, Luis knows control doesn't mean peace. It just means you're the last one who hasn't fallen apart yet. And that's where this version of Liberty City hits the hardest. It's not full of dreamers anymore. It's full of managers. People just trying to keep things from breaking. People like Luis who mistake endurance for happiness. Because in this world, staying calm doesn't save you, it just makes the fall quieter. Tony Prince is the kind of person everyone recognizes but no one really sees. He's the face on the flyers, the name on the club, the man shaking hands and pretending that's power, but underneath the charm, you can see it. He's exhausted. He's been pretending for so long that the performance is now the person. He built this version of himself out of fear. Fear of fading away, fear of being forgotten, fear that the only reason people ever cared about him was because he gave them a good night. That's what his whole empire runs on, the fear of irrelevance. Tony doesn't actually love parties, he loves what they used to mean. Validation, troll, proof that he mattered. Now they're just routine. The lights come on, the crowds cheer, the night ends, and nothing changes. He wakes up surrounded by everything he ever wanted and it doesn't feel like enough. That's why his story feels so different from everyone else's in this world. Nico is running from his past, Johnny was clinging to his, but Tony's stuck in the present, repeating it every night until it finally collapses. He's fragile, but he hides it behind humor. The sarcasm, the dramatics, the meltdowns, they're self-defense mechanism. He talks like a man in control, but every word sounds like he's trying to convince himself it's still true, and Luis knows it. He's seen Tony fall apart more times than he can count, and every time, he's the one who picks him back up, rebuilds the illusion, and then keeps the brand alive. It's not friendship anymore, it's damage control. That's what makes their relationship so complicated. Tony needs Luis because Luis makes the illusion possible, but Luis needs Tony too because without Tony, there's nothing left to hold together. He's not just protecting Tony's dream, he's protecting his own sense of purpose. They're both stuck in this loop where love looks like labor. One's terrified of falling, the other's terrified of letting go, and the saddest part, they're both right about each other. Tony knows Luis deserves better, a life outside of the illusion, but he also knows Luis won't leave until it all falls apart. There's a line Luis says near the end of the game that's something along the lines of, "I'm done with this life," but when you look at him, when you look at Tony, you realize this story was never about getting out. It was about how far people will go to pretend they can, because Tony's not a villain. He's what happens when success stops feeling like safety. He's the mirror for everyone who ever built a life around an image and then realized the image became the prison. The city loves a good illusion. You don't even have to be happy, you just have to look like you are. That's what this version of Liberty City runs on. Not truth, not stability, but performance. Every night, Tony's club fills up with people pretending they made it, and in a way, they have, because in this world, success isn't about peace, it's about distraction. If you can afford the lights, if you can afford the fake confidence, then you get to feel free for a few hours. That's the exchange. You pay to forget. But the problem with illusions is that someone has to keep them running, and for every person dancing under those lights, there's someone like Luis holding it together, quietly watching the bills pile up, the debts collect, and the walls start to crack. Fame doesn't fix anything in this world, it just makes failure more expensive. Tony's drowning in it. The debts, the paranoia, the late night calls of the people he owes too much money to. He still shows up to the club, shakes hands, smiles for photos, but every night ends the same way. A man alone in a room, built to look full. That's what makes the tone of the story so unique. It's not about ambition anymore, it's about maintenance. Keeping the dream from falling apart just long enough for everyone to believe it's still alive. Luis understands this better than anyone. He doesn't even flinch at the chaos anymore. A gun deal, a debt collector, a fight in the club. He treats it all like routine because the second you start reacting, the illusion breaks. And when it breaks, everything comes crashing down. The irony is that both Tony and Luis are doing the same thing, just in different ways. Tony's lying to the world, Luis is lying to himself. Tony's pretending he's still relevant, Luis is still pretending that staying calm means he's not trapped. And Liberty City rewards both of them for it, because in this city, image is survival. The moment you stop pretending, you start to disappear. The game doesn't show you people chasing dreams anymore. It shows you people who caught them and are terrified of what comes next. That's what fame looks like here. Not luxury, fear. Tony and Luis are just two more examples of how the city chews people up, not because they're weak, but because they can't stop performing. They can't stop trying to prove that the spotlight means something to them. But underneath it all, they both know the truth. You can't pay off emptiness. You can distract from it, you can decorate it, but eventually the silence comes back, and that silence is what this world is really afraid of. Now, Yusuf. Yusuf is one of those characters you can't help but smile at. He walks into every scene like he owns the world. Confident, loud, and impossible to ignore. Gold cars, private helicopters, ridiculous ideas that somehow work. He feels untouchable, but that's what makes him such a perfect addition to this world. Because underneath all that confidence, Yusuf is just another person trying to convince himself he's in control. Everything about him is exaggerated. His wealth, his charm, even his generosity. But if you pay attention, it's not arrogance driving him, it's anxiety. He's desperate to be seen as important. Every gift, every stunt, every wild idea. It's a way to prove he belongs at the top of a system that doesn't actually respect him. He's the opposite of Tony, but they're the same kind of fragile. Tony uses attention to distract from fear. Yusuf uses it to hide it. Both of them are terrified of fading out of relevance. Luis fits somewhere in the middle, too grand to fall into Yusuf's chaos, but too loyal to admit that he understands it. Because even though Yusuf seems ridiculous, Luis knows what that hunger feels like. The need to matter, the need to be seen, the need to believe that being part of something, anything, means you've made it. And that's what makes Yusuf more than just a side character. He's what this world looks like when the illusion becomes confidence. He doesn't question the fantasy because questioning it means breaking it. He's so deep inside the image that the image has become real to him. But there's something strangely sad about Yusuf too. For all the money, all the freedom, all the chaos, he's still chasing approval. Every time he talks about his father or his reputation, you can hear it. That quiet insecurity hiding behind the jokes. He's trying to buy the respect he doesn't think he deserves. It's what makes him one of the most human characters in the entire game because deep down, he's not lying to us, he's lying to himself. The illusion works because he wants it to. He needs it to. Because the moment he stops pretending to be invincible, he'll have to face what's left, and like everyone else in the story, he's not ready for that. Yusuf's world is one of constant performance. A stage where control and chaos look the same from the audience. And while everyone laughs at how ridiculous he is, there's a part of you that recognizes the truth behind it. This is what the dream looks like when it finally eats itself. If you strip away the lights, the noise, the chaos, Liberty City has always been selling one thing, the illusion of progress. Every story that takes place here starts with someone chasing something better, a new life, a fresh start, an escape, and every time it ends with the same realization. The dream doesn't save you, it just changes shape. In Nico's story, it was survival. In Johnny's, it was loyalty. But here, in Luis's world, it's illusion. The belief that success can fix everything, even when you know it can't. The city looks cleaner now. There's money everywhere, there's style, there's confidence, but it's all decoration. The same broken system just covered in luxury. And that's what the Bow to Gay Tony captures better than any other part of GTA 4. It's not about chasing the dream, it's about maintaining the illusion of having called it. You can see it in the missions, the dialogue, even the tone of the world itself. Everything's fast, impulsive, expensive. People don't think about tomorrow because they can barely hold on to today. The entire story feels like it's happening in slow collapse. A party that's already over, but no one's willing to admit it. Tony tries to keep the crowd happy. Yusuf buys more toys to feel important. Luis just keeps working, making sure the lights stay on a little longer. It's a city of people performing stability while their foundations rot. And what's brilliant about the story is how it mirrors real exhaustion. Everyone in this game is tired, not because of failure, but because of the effort it takes to keep pretending they haven't failed yet. That's what makes Luis such an honest main character. He's not chasing glory, he's chasing quiet. He He doesn't want the dream anymore, he just wants the noise to stop long enough to think. But Liberty City doesn't stop. It rewards distraction. It keeps feeding people illusions because illusions keep the money moving. And in that way, the city isn't just a setting, it's a character. One that survives by convincing everyone else that they're still winning. The American dream here isn't freedom or success, it's denial. It's a dream that needs to look real, even when it's built on debt, fear, and burnout. The people living in it know it's fake, they just can't afford to stop believing. And for Luis, that's the core of everything. He's the only one honest enough to see that the dream has already burned out, but still loyal enough to keep fanning the ashes, pretending there's something left to save. At this point, Luis isn't living in Liberty City anymore, he's running it like a job. Every conversation, every mission, every problem feels rehearsed. He knows who's going to mess up, who's going to call for help, and how to fix it before it hits the ground. It's not instinct anymore, it's maintenance. The illusion has become a business. Keep the lights on, keep Tony calm, keep the deals moving. If everything looks fine, then it is fine. That's the unspoken rule. That's what makes this part of the story so quietly devastating. Luis doesn't need to believe in the dream to keep it alive, he just needs to make sure no one else notices it's dead. Every mission reflects that. You're cleaning up messes that aren't yours, smoothing over disasters you didn't cause, fixing chaos that keeps repeating because no one wants to deal with the root of it. And Luis does it all with that same detached calm, because that's his role now. The man who keeps the illusion from collapsing. He's not addicted to power, he's addicted to control. Not control over people, but control over perception. He needs things to look right. That's how he measures stability, but control comes with a price. When you spend your life putting out fires, you forget what it feels like to stand still. You forget what peace even looks like without pressure attached to it. That's why Luis never slows down. He doesn't trust quiet. Quiet means something's wrong, so he keeps moving, keeps fixing, keeps pretending the system still works. And the more he holds it together, the worse it gets. Tony's dependency grows, the debts keep stacking up, the illusion gets heavier, more fragile, and harder to maintain, and Luis becomes a foundation that's starting to crack under it. It's a kind of burnout that feels too real to be fiction. You start with good intentions, keeping things steady, helping people, holding everything up, and before you know it, you're defined by it. You're not a person anymore, you're a function. That's the tragedy hiding in plain sight. Luis isn't chasing success, he's keeping failure from showing. He's built a life around pretending things are fine because if he stops pretending, people around him will finally see how hollow it all is. He's not trapped in the chaos, he's trapped in the maintenance of it all. That's what makes the story so haunting, the realization that sometimes the illusion doesn't control you, you control it, and that's even worse, because it means you're aware of the lie and you keep it alive anyways. Luis has spent so long managing chaos that he's forgot what actual control feels like. He's surrounded by people who confuse attention with power, and he's learned to keep things steady by playing along. It's not manipulation, it's survival, but that balance can't last forever. The crack starts small, a deal that goes wrong, a conversation where Tony starts spiraling faster than usual, moments where Luis's calm doesn't fix anything anymore. That's when you start to see the truth, that control in this world is just another illusion. Luis's authority doesn't come from strength, it comes from other people's weakness. The only reason he looks so composed is because everything else is falling apart around him. And the second that chaos stops listening, his image starts to collapse with it. He's not commanding the situation anymore, he's performing the role of someone who can. And the scary part is, he doesn't truly realize it. Because when you spent your whole life pretending to be stable, you stop knowing what's real and what's performance. Every mission at this point starts to feel heavier now. Not because the danger's worse, but because Luis finally looks tired. Not in a physical way, it's in the way he talks, the way he reacts, the way he looks at people who can't stop repeating the same mistakes. He's not judging them, he's just realizing he's one of them. That's what this section of the story captures so well, that power, when it's built on maintenance instead of meaning, always ends up hollow. It's not about leading anyone, it's about keeping the illusion from collapsing long enough to get through another night. Tony's losing control of his empire, Yusuf's chaos is catching up to him. Even the city feels louder, meaner, like it's pushing back against everyone trying to hold it together, and right in the middle is Luis, still standing, still composed, but for the first time, you can tell he doesn't believe it anymore. There's this moment where he stops talking like a problem solver and starts sounding like someone who's just tired of pretending. You can hear it in his tone, the frustration, the disbelief, the quiet recognition that he's become the thing he's been holding up. That's the shift. Luis isn't holding the illusion anymore, the illusion's holding him. Every choice he makes from here feels like someone trying to control a storm with his own hands. The tighter he grips, the faster it slips through his fingers. And that's when you realize what this whole story's been about. Not the rise and fall of power, but the cost of performing it. Because once you build your life around performance, the act never really ends. Even when the curtain drops, you're still standing on stage, waiting for someone to tell you it's finally over. And there's a point in every illusion where even the people maintaining it stop believing it. They still show up, still smile, still play the part, but something in their eyes change. That's where Luis is now. The calm doesn't feel like composure anymore, it starts to feel like habit. Each time he steps into another crisis, every time Tony falls apart, you can see it. He's not fixing things because he believes in them. He's fixing them because he doesn't know what else to do. The chaos isn't exciting anymore. It's exhausting. It's not adrenaline, it's repetition. The same cycle, the same problems, the same city pretending it's still alive. And that's when the illusion finally starts to break. Tony's losing control, not just of the clubs, but of himself. The people they work with stop pretending they respect him, the debts close in, and every solution Luis finds just makes things worse. The world he's been managing isn't crumbling from one bad decision, it's collapsing under the weight of constant pretending. There's a kind of sadness to watching it happen, because Luis doesn't rage, he doesn't panic, he just looks tired. The same kind of tired that comes from realizing you've been protecting something that never really existed. And that's what the Battle to Tony does so well. It doesn't explode into chaos, it quietly decays. It shows you people falling apart in slow motion, each one still trying to look composed as the floor gives out. Even Yusuf's optimism starts to sound forced. The jokes don't hit the same way. The confidence looks performative. Everyone's still talking about success, but no one's convinced anymore. And Luis, the one person who used to see through it all, he's finally realizing that being the calm one doesn't mean being right, it just means being the last one to accept the truth. That's the cruel part of illusion. It doesn't break cleanly. It fades, piece by piece, until you're left trying to remember what was ever real. Luis has kept the machine running for so long that he can't tell where his role ends and where the act begins. He's been the fixer, the friend, the responsible one, but now the job's just routine. He's pretending out of muscle memory, and when that realization hits, that everything he built his identity around was ever solid, it doesn't come with anger, it comes with emptiness, because once the illusion fades, you don't get the old life back, you just get the silence that's been waiting underneath it. When you spend enough time keeping other people's worlds from collapsing, you start to lose sight of what your own even looks like. That is where Luis ends up. All the composure, all the patience, all the discipline. It starts to feel less like strength and more like punishment. He's been holding his breath for the entire story, and now there's no one left to tell him it's okay to excel. Luis has built his whole identity on responsibility. He's the one who fixes things. He's the one who keeps everyone safe, and when that becomes who you are, you forget that you're supposed to need saving too. That's the quiet tragedy underneath his character. He's not empty because he failed, he's empty because he succeeded. He did everything right, played every role, held every line, and it still wasn't enough to make anyone happy. Not Tony, not the business, not himself. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't show in words or action. You just hear it in his tone. He doesn't yell anymore. He doesn't joke as much. He sounds like someone who's finally realizing how much of himself he's given away. The illusion doesn't break in one moment. It eroded, slowly, until Luis was the only one still trying to keep it alive. He's been running damage control for everyone else's mistakes for so long that he stopped noticing how much it was damaging him. And the more he tries to stay composed, the worse it gets, because at this point, calm isn't clarity, it's denial. It's pretending he's still in control when there's nothing left to control. That's what makes the story feel so human. It's not about some big fall from power, it's about the quiet realization that stability can be just as dangerous as chaos. That staying calm while everything burns doesn't make you strong. It just makes you the last one to admit it's over. You can see it in his face, in the way he looks at Tony, in the way he looks at Yusuf. He's not angry at them anymore, he's just done. The energy's gone, the belief's gone, and all that's left is obligation. That's the cause of holding it together. It's not the danger of the violence or the fear. It's what happens when you stop remembering why you're even doing it. When the work becomes the identity, and the act becomes the person. And when Luis finally realizes that, the story stops being about keeping things running, it becomes about what happens when you let them fall. When it's finally over, it's quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel right because you've spent so long surrounded by the noise that silence starts to feel wrong. And that's how the Battle to Tony ends. Not with a shootout, not with revenge, well, kind of with a shootout, but just two people who finally ran out of lies to tell themselves. Luis stays behind, but Tony, he leaves. After everything he's built, everything he's lost, he finally walks away from Liberty City. No big speech, no dramatic send-off, just gone. And that says more about his character than anything he's ever said out loud. Because Tony's entire life was about being seen. He needed to be the center of the attention, to be the guy everyone looked at and thought he made it, but by the end, he doesn't need that anymore. He's done performing, he's done being the show, and Luis, he doesn't follow him. He just stays here. You can tell he doesn't really know what comes next, because for the first time, there's nothing left to manage. No debts to pay, no chaos cleanup, no one left to protect. It's a strange kind of ending because it doesn't really feel final. The city's still there, the noise still carries on in the background, but the illusion's gone. The world Luis built his entire life around, the parties, the power, the performance, it doesn't really exist anymore. And when you look at it, that's what makes this story so powerful. It's not about winning, and it's not about losing. It's about what happens after all that, when the lights finally turn off and there's no one left to pretend for. Tony gets to leave. He gets to escape the illusion by stepping out of it. Luis doesn't. He's still here, in the same city, walking the same streets, but for the first time, he actually sees it for what it is. And that's what reality looks like in Liberty City. It's not something you reach, it's something that catches up to you. Tony got out, Luis didn't. And deep down, he probably knows why. Because leaving means letting go, and Luis doesn't know who he is without something to hold on to. So when everything goes quiet, when the story finally stops moving, it doesn't really feel like a true ending. It feels like a man realizing there's nothing left to fix, and for once, no illusion left to hide behind. So, for this last time, when the lights finally fade and Liberty City goes quiet again, you start to see the pattern. Every story that takes place here, every life, every struggle, it's all just different ways of chasing the same thing. Nico came here looking for peace, Johnny fought to hold on to purpose, and Luis, he tried to make the illusion look real long enough to believe it in himself. 3 men, 3 lives, 1 city. Each of them lost in a different kind of dream. That's the beauty of GTA 4. It doesn't give you heroes or villains, it gives you people. People trying to rebuild, trying to forget, trying to belong, and no matter how far they go, they all end up in the same place. Standing in the middle of a city that promises everything and then delivers nothing. For Nico, trauma was a ghost he couldn't escape. For Johnny, loyalty was a weight he couldn't carry. And for Luis, illusion was a wall he built himself. One he didn't realize was closing in until everyone else was gone. And that's what the Battle of Tony is really about. It's not about money, fame, or power. It's about how pretending can feel safer than starting over. How sometimes you'd rather live inside the performance than risk facing what's outside of it. Tony leaves, Johnny burns it all down, Nico keeps walking, and Luis stays behind, not because he wants to, but because someone always does. Someone has to stand in the aftermath and look at what's left. Liberty City doesn't change. It doesn't forgive, and it doesn't remember. It just keeps moving, waiting for the next person to believe they can outsmart it. That's the real illusion, not the money, not the fame, not even the American dream. The illusion is saying that the city ever loved anyone back, and maybe that's what makes this world so unforgettable, because for all the chaos, all the pain, all the noise, there's still truth buried underneath it. Not a happy one, not a perfect one, but one that feels real. That's why the Battle of Tony is the perfect final act of the story. It's not about breaking free, it's about realizing there's no such thing. It's about understanding that sometimes the illusion isn't there to trick you, it's there to keep you going. And when it all finally fades, when the city goes quiet and you're the only one left standing, you realize the truth that ties all this together. Nobody escapes Liberty City, some just stop pretending they can.